Hello everybody, it is your Professor Rocco, you boy, coming at you with another Age of Sigmar video. In this AoS general class, Rocco is going to respond to Skaven questions, because recently we put out a video for Thanksgiving for what I was thankful for, and they were viewer questions, and I love answering, along with the channel, our community we're growing here. And this was something that was put up to me for Skaven synergies. I don't know if we're going to do all 13 because that video would be very long and there's so many because this book is just so jam-packed with stuff. But I'm going to give it my best shot. Here we go. So who are the Skaven? They are a rat humanoid people that was very popular in fantasy. It was one of Games Workshop's unique creations of a fantasy people. And they came into Age of Sigmar. At the end of the old world, they helped blow it up. They crashed the moon into the world, killed everybody. And even for that horrible thing to most people, they loved it. It was how they got their god, the Great Horned Rat, to ascend to be a true Chaos God. And the four Chaos Gods are like, whatever. But the Great Horned Rat is a real Chaos God, you guys, okay? Don't listen to what anyone else says. It's real. It's there. But a lot of people in the universe think Skaven are like a myth, like a nightmare, a story you tell to scare children about the rat people that'll eat you. And it's completely true. They're there. They're there. They tunnel under everything. They burrow through reality with their gnaw holes, looking for warpstone, doing the bidding of the dark gods. Some of them even like Nurgle, which is a whole thing. And they are just really fun, and they're fun to play against, because a lot of the rules that make them really good have a chance of backfiring on you. And they'll either like kill your whole unit or blow themselves up in the attempt. Or both! And it's very fun to find out which way the dice are going to go. And that also means it's a little overwhelming to go through all this as a seasoned player, let alone newbies. And I see that there's a typo, but I'm keeping this in because everyone makes mistakes. Let's go with battle traits here. We've got lead from the back, because you're going to see there's a bit of a theme here. Skaven, if you're one-on-one with the Skaven, they are cowards. You can see this in Vermintide, the video game. You can see this about the Total War games. The Age of Sigmar kept all that good stuff here. So lead from the back boils down to a Skaven hero being close to a unit that has 3 or more models in it. Gets to be -1 to be hit from melee weapons. They basically get their own version of Lookout Sir for melee, which is amazing. Because the cowards, and they like using other Skaven as living shields. And we have Scurry Away, which a Skaven hero, when you select them, can retreat instead of fight to live another day. Extremely flavorful. If your opponent was like, there's a battle tactic to kill that hero, and they didn't do the order of activations right, or they didn't surround the guy so he can't run away, get out of there. It's a great rule. But Skaven do get brave when they have large numbers of them, and this strength in numbers I love, which is add 1 to the range of melee weapons used by Skaven units for every 10 models in the attacking unit. That means if you have a 2-inch reach spear or halberd, and you have 30 models, let's say, in the unit, that means they have a 5-inch reach. So you never should have to worry about getting all of your attacks in, whether they're good quality halberds, okay middle-of-the-road swords, or meh spears. You're going to use your overwhelming mass of bodies to just tear people down through like a death by 1,000 cuts situation. So now, who are all these sub-factions that are the Great Clans? I'll tell you. You can lord over people with your rats. The Master Clan. These are the Grey Seers, the Tacticians, and Master Wizards. These are the Vermin Lords, which are kind of like Demon Princes for rats. That go with mages, good combat, sneaky ninja stuff. You name it, there's a flavor of rat demon for you. If you have 3 heroes with the Master Clan keyword, you get the cool ability Always 3 Claw Steps Ahead, which lets you pick a friendly Skaven unit, and then during the run, if you're going to make a run roll, the first unit you do that with, if you get a good run roll, you can use it for your whole army. Same thing with the charge roll, and also mentions pile-in moves, which is really cool because Age of Sigmar, at its core, is a game where you win it in the movement phase, or just through movement abilities in general. And if you luck out and roll a 12-inch charge on your first charge, because it's unmodified dice rolls, you get to use it for all your units. And if not, you don't have to use it. It's just one more thing to try to help with the consistency on an army that is not consistent at all. And I like it. Also, you get a cool bodyguard rule for your heroes. If you're not bringing one of the units that is actually a bodyguard, this is nice. I mean, honestly, yeah, this is just nice to have. Shoot you with rats. If you're gonna go, your opponent's gonna try to shoot you with rats here. Clan Scryer. The whole thing here is they are the tinkerers, the inventors, the gunsmiths, the weaponsmiths. They have war machines. They combine with another clan to make one of the scariest flesh golem armed with machine guns you could find, because they gave them the machine guns. Clan Scryer, they just want to shoot you. And this sometimes is actually viewed as more of the elite army choice, because some of their stuff is just really expensive point-wise. But the cool thing is, 1, their guns are really good. 2, they have this Warpstone Sparks ability, where, again, pre-game, and there's a way to get a couple extra with a command trait. You can try to get these Warpstone Sparks that give you buffs throughout the game. When you spend it, there's a chance that at the end of the phase you spent it, you could blow yourself up for mortal wounds. Honestly, live fast, die hard is the Skaven motto, so this perfectly encapsulates that. You can use this to buff a lot of your shooting, your melee if you get stuck in, it's a hero specifically. But if you need to be +1 to hit and wound, whether it's, you're debuffed by like a Frostheart Phoenix and someone casts Protection of Hish on that Phoenix, and you need this, it's an amazing buff. If you need to clear out the last bit of an infantry thing, do it. Go ahead. It is amazing what these buffs can do. The shooting is really what you're here for, and the wizard stuff, because you're trying to get that rerolling casting. Or if your opponent is just extremely magic dependent to get their combos off, pop a Warpstone Spark if you got some, and you will just wreck house. Also looking at this, yeah, it's just a really nice way to buff your army. We're gonna disease you with rats next. Clan Pestilence. They actually believe in Nurgle and the Great Horned Rat. And they feel that the Great Horned Rat, because that's the thing with all these clans too, they see a different aspect of themselves in their god that shows up to them. And this is a clan that's, it's not a lot of models in this kind of a sub-faction. Sure, there's Plague Monks, Censer Bearers, the different priests. One of the best centerpieces that the army has in the Plague Furnace, which does a lot of damage and mortal wounds. The thing here is Clan Pestilence is not a magic faction. They are prayers. And they're, as you can see here with the making a chanting roll, if you have multiple priests wholly within 13 of the priest chanting, so you group all your priests up, you get +1 to the roll. And if you get a 6 or higher, and that's modifiable to hit that, you get to do the prayer you did and one of these great plagues. And this is, you can only manifest one great plague once per battle, and no more than one once per turn. But these are very, with the buffs you can get, because they also have a scenery piece that can give you +1 to your rolls. There's a very good shot. I think there might even be a command trait we'll go over later that might even give another plus. There's a very good shot you're going to get one of these Great Plagues off a turn just from the amount of... You want to bring 3 priests, maybe 4, to just get these off when you need them. And the buffs are really good. Like this bubonic blight plague is... If the infected unit is destroyed by mortal wound... if this Great Plague manifests, pick the nearest enemy unit within 13 inches. And 13 is the Skaven's number, like 8 is for corn. So just bear with me. So kind of mid-range threat here. The unit you pick is infected with the plague, and if several enemy units are tied for closest, you can pick who it is. So you have to pick the nearest enemy unit. And this is a subfaction that is melee focused generally. They have 1 artillery piece, but it's not much to write home about. So you want to push up with all your stuff. The infected unit takes 2d6 mortal wounds in addition to whatever the prayer was you did to him before, right? And if the unit is destroyed, you can pick another enemy unit within 6 and take another d6 mortal wounds. And then you just keep going. Which is really cool for how that's worded. There's a stop mechanic in there, but that's really awesome for a lot of damage. And again, these are like, you can reroll chanting rolls for Clan Pestilent Priests. Some of these are buffs that really help your army out when you need it. So that would probably be the first one I would pop, because I wouldn't be in range generally first turn for the Mortal Wound Bomb there. And, then you just go on from there. It's great. It's just a great prayer list. More armies need prayer lists as good as this. Now there's Clan Eshin, who okay, let's just be honest here. Their rules are cool. Ninja rats are amazing. The models are a little dated. They're slowly bumping them up. But they're very good at assassinating people. Yeah, if your opponent has this one big centerpiece hero model that's holding the line, even if it's Archeon, there you go. +1 to hit and wound rolls to kill a 900 some odd point model can really be helpful. Yeah, they're nice. Clan Molder is probably one of my favorite to play against, honestly, because it is just Flesh Abomination after Flesh Abomination with Hell Pits. The Hell Pit Abomination is an amalgamation of many, many gigantic rats stitched together in a Frankensteinian way. The model is a little silly and ridiculous. But this gets you buffs. And it's nice. It's nice. You can pick 1 Hell Pit Abomination there to get a mutation, which I love that it's like make it beefier and have a better armor save. Automatically roll a charge of a 7 for your model, so you don't have to worry about rolling charges. Add 1 to each roll you make for the Avalanche of Flesh ability, which is an impact hit. Be able to heal in your hero phase. When it dies, it could blow up into a bunch of rats. It could come back to life. This thing is just so freaky and cool that if you're going this subfaction, you're not going to regret it for the buff that you can give a Hell Pit. If you want to flood the board with 200-ish models at least, Clan Verminous is for you. The Clans Verminous here have a really cool ability too with these Claw Lords that give out buffs to your Clan Rats and your Storm Vermin, because they have a thing called Storm Fiends. I always have to double check my notes. The thing with Claw Lords here with this and why I love this is because you're going to be bringing 3 Claw Lords anyway in this kind of a build. And you could bring the named one, they just don't get access to the command trait. But the fact that you can do a heroic action to get a command trait, because it's the eligible Skaven command trait that the Claw Lord doesn't already have. And there's some limitations. You know, the same command trait can't be picked more than once in the same turn. But if you need a buff somewhere on the table that a command trait for Clan Verminous can provide, that is an amazing use of a heroic action, because there's only so much you can do with a bunch of command points. And if you're taking, say, a Warlord battalion, you know, just use a command point there to try to, instead of, you know, rolling for one on a 4-up or trying to get, you know, their best day ever. You know what? Skaven fight from the back for their heroes, so you shouldn't be in combat anyway unless you're desperate. Use one of these and buff up your troops, and you'll be fine. Speaking of flavorful command traits here, so dead middle of the screen is the Verminous stuff, but I'm going to start on the left. These are just a few of the ones that I like, because there's just so many. There's so much to this book, everybody. I love it. So Molder, here we add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for fighting beast units, and that is Rat Ogres, which are their conditional battle line, which are 3, and this is melee. Now add 1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by not melee. Just +1 to hit and wound. Again, who's spending command points when you have this on one of your heroes? So that makes their shooting attack go from a 4 to hit to a 3, and then a 3 to wound to a 2. Does 2 damage, and then their melee attacks go from 3s and 3s to 2s and 2s. It's a great buff. This also works for, gosh. I'm just excited to read them all. There's just so many cool things. We have rat swarms that are, they're pack units. So they are not fighting beasts. I'm doing this in real time here. Okay, so this is mostly for the rat ogres. Let's see if the Hell Pit Abomination, it is a fighting beast. So looking at its profile here, it's got 6 attacks with its gnashing teeth, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, starts off at -3 rend, 2 damage. Again, 2s and 2s is amazing. We'll get 2s and 2s, 2s to hit, 2s to wound on the Flailing Fist at -1 rend, 3 damage, starting at 6 attacks there. And the Avalanche of Flesh. Ooh, forgive me. So the Avalanche of Flesh used to be a charge phase thing. Now it is, do not use the attack sequence for an attack made with Avalanche of Flesh. Instead, roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in the target unit that is within range. You can re-roll any of the dice if this unit made a charge move this turn. For each roll that is equal to or greater than the Avalanche of Flesh's value on the chart, the target suffers a mortal wound. And so this starts at a 2-up. And again, we said before, there's a way to buff that to get +1 to this roll. So that can be extremely scary. Holy cow. It also has a spell ignore and a 4-up. And when it dies, you roll a dice. On a 1, it stays dead. 2 to 4, you do D3 mortal wounds. A 5 to a 6, it heals D6 of its wounds and comes back to life. It's so cool. So the 3 in the middle here, we've got the Verminous Valor, which is, if this general is within 3, you get a wound shrug. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. Again, which is nice if you need your heroes alive to do other things. Savage Overlord, which is great to stop battle shock tests from going awry when you have your hordes of Skaven that have like a 5 bravery or something ridiculously low. You need that to keep them around. And Powerful Alpha. The first 2 wounds or mortal wounds caused to this general in each phase are negated. Each phase. That is their shooting phase, that is their hero phase trying to get you with magic, that is impact hits in the charge phase, that is combat phase stuff. If they're squigs that flee in the battle shock phase and do mortal wounds to you on the way out, all of a sudden your clan Verminous hero became very durable. And it's, again, really good. I'd use a heroic action on that. We have the Master of Magic for Master Clan Hero, where you reroll your casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for the general. There's a way to screw with your opponent's command point. And again, it's within 13. It's a little close range. But it's really cool. It's a way to break up opposing synergies. Again, I'm going to use cities as an example while it's still, worded as it is. Like the Frostheart Phoenix can, in the combat phase, spend a command point to give an aura of rerolling wound rolls, currently. On a 5-up, that's gone. I waste the command point. You got my command point. And now my amazing buff that makes my elite infantry hit harder just fell flat. And Pestilent here, Master of Rot and Ruined. Yeah, +1 to chanting rolls. So you can get a +3 to one of your heroes between the terrain piece, this, and having at least one priest nearby. So can you roll a 3-up to get a Great Plague out when you need it? That should happen 66% of the time. That's awesome. You can start to see some of the combos and some of the things you could just think about here with this. We have really good artifacts with Skaven. It feels like a bajillion. These are some of my favorite. These are not necessarily the best, but they are some of my favorite ones. So we've got Skaven Brew, which is once per turn in your hero phase. Very specifically, your hero phase. Pick one friendly Skaven unit that's close by. The unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, but add 1 to the attack's characteristic of melee weapons. So a thing you can do with this is there's a spell called Death Frenzy that lets a unit fight on death. You can give this to, let's say, a unit of Storm Vermin. They come 2 attacks apiece with their halberds. 3 is to hit, 3 is to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. You give this, they get extra attacks. Say it's a unit of 30, that went from, God. Let's do the math here, folks. So, again, real time here. 30 times 2 is 60 attacks base, right? But if it's 30 times 3, that's 90. I got a calculator. Woo! Wow, that is a low-flying helicopter. I'm going to try to edit that out. So with your 90 attacks, you fight. You've got extra range from having 30 of them. Okay, halberds have 1-inch range. Write that down. So 4 inches effectively with the rule to give you extra range when you have more bodies. They're all going to get in when you cast the spell. There's a spell to let you fight on death. Then those ones that die fight again with all the extra attacks. And again, it's death by 1,000 cuts. And it will just... I don't care if you're on a 2-up save. You will eventually roll a bunch of 1s. Just if I keep throwing dice at you. If you're on a 2-up save, take your rend. You're on a 3-up. It's going to be rough. Vial of the Fulminator, which is kind of funny, is at the start of your movement phase, pick a Clan Scryer War Machine within 6 inches of the bear, double the move characteristic. This is for Warp Lightning Cannons, because one of the things about a Warp Lightning Cannon is it only moves 3 inches. It has a 24-inch range, but most people will deploy the thing they don't want shot away from this thing. So this is my little secret, kind of not so secret tech piece to make sure your artillery's in range to do a bunch of mortal wounds to them. But really, what it should be for is the Doom Wheel, which is just like a hamster wheel, or a rat wheel, I guess, that runs around with cannons and can impale people. And it rolls along at a 4d6 movement that then you just doubled. And when you move, you count as flying, right? So you can fly over models that have a wound characteristic of 3 or less in the same manner as fly. And when you go over a unit on a 2-up, you do D3 mortal wounds to it. So, and then you can do more and more speed, which is you make a normal move with this unit, you reroll the roll. However, if any of those dice are an unmodified 1, your opponent makes the move with this unit instead of you. Things can get really crazy when you crank this up with Vial of the Fulminator. Of just flying around the board. If your opponent thought there was an objective that was safe, because they screened out your deep striking or your teleporting or whatever you want to call it. This is your movement shenanigan to fly over like a screen of a bunch of 1 wound infantry, a bunch of goblins, even some stormcast because they're 3 wounds or under usually, and just steal an objective. This is your movement play. Though again, I like it for the slow moving artillery. This is really what it should be for. Next is the Rabid Crown for Molder heroes, where add 1 to hit rolls for friendly fighting beast and Molder pack units. Again, it's more... at this point, it's kind of redundancy with the command trait and stuff, because there are so many -1 to hit debuffs in this game. This is just an amazing artifact. Again, that's why it's here on the page. And finally, it is probably the funniest one, the living cyst down there. It is a sentient zit that passes around to the different pestilence heroes, and you get the strikes first effect if you made a charge move. So what you want to do is put this on initially, because at the start of the second battle round, it bounces around. You start it on one of your foot priests. That's going to be safe in the back. And then you throw it on 1 or 2 plague furnaces you have, because it's just that good. Then just have it bounce around so that when it charges in, it gets the strike first effect. It is just so good. It just the imagery of a zit like plopping off a rat, crawling around and attaching itself to another rat, just is funny to me. Yeah, love it. Love it. The spell lores are good. I can't cover all of them because they're that good. So, again, Scorch is nice. We're not here for Scorch. We're here for Skitterleap. I know, I just said they're all good. Scorch is good. It is good. There's armies that I use that and I love it. Low casting value. You love to see it. There's a way to at least get +1 to casting from the terrain feature, which we'll cover at the end of the video. Amazing. Amazing. Skitterleap is a teleport. Pick 1 friendly Skaven hero with a wounds characteristic of 13 or less within range. Invisible. Remove that hero from the battlefield. This is a spell to, again, be sneaky and teleport. This is a spell that just... Hold on. Yes. This is a spell that will allow you to get into reposition your hero, where if things hit the fan, you need to either capture an objective, you need to go to the other side of the battlefield and buff a unit. You need to set up a combo where you're going to teleport a unit over from another way, but you want that there to be a buff piece to that unit when they pop out. This is how you get around that. This is how you do that. Skitterleap is an integral spell here for moving around your heroes to where they need to be. And finally, Death Frenzy, the Fight on Death spell, which again, with the things we've talked about before, with our different synergies, you can fully buff a lot of units of either Clan Rats or Storm Vermin, where they just tear everything apart. And Plague Monks. Works great on them too. Also the prayers. They have great names. Disease. Again, and all these prayers answer on a 3. Yes, they're short. Well, again, mid-range at 13, not short. Again, it's mortal wounds on disease. It's add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by a unit, which is amazing. Again, +1 to wound is kind of a rarity outside of this book, because I've said a few ways to get it, but not every army gets access to that, and there's also some armies starting to get -1 to wound auras or abilities. Even the new Ogre book has some in it. So this is a great way to get around that. And Rabid. Add 1 of the characteristics of melee weapons for a friendly clan pestilence unit within range and visible to the caster. And do that with Death Frenzy. It's great. It's just great. And again, it's a prayer. You can't unbind a prayer. Just can you get a 3 up when you have +3 on the roll? Can you? I think you can. And you're probably getting a great prayer off to re-roll these too. You should never fail a prayer roll as Skaven when you get your combo up and running. And also, we have a couple of doable battle tactics. They're specific for the different clans. I only have 2 because the other 2 I don't think are really doable. So we have Fire, more with Scryer units, where kill a monster with your shooting that is meant to shoot and kill monsters and big threat pieces. Yeah, okay. I'm going to do it anyway. That's an autocomplete. And then Crescendo of the Diseased Choir is complete this battle tactic of 3 or more prayers chanted by different friendly priests are answered in this turn. Now, I've already said, I think you should bring 2 Plague Furnaces. They come with priests. So then you bring a couple Foot Priests. I would do this one in probably the first battle round when you have enough priests where you're shooting for that rerolling the prayer Great Plague. And then it's done. And that's the thing, too, because the General's Handbook battle tactics, they've been getting harder with each General's Handbook. This is a great way to free you up so that you can set up some easier ones down the road. Whether it's like take over an enemy terrain piece, kill an enemy hero with your general, whatever they end up being in whatever General's Handbook. This frees you up as a first round battle tactic to set up for other ones later in the game. They're playing checkers, we're playing chess here. Not to mention, there are always going to be 1 or 2 gimmies in the General's Handbook anyway. Like, one of them in the current season is, hold an objective without an enemy Galatian veteran unit on it. Cool. I can do that battle round 2 now because this is an autocomplete. Now I have 2 out of my 5 battle tactics are going to be auto-completed. That's great. And if you have a mixed arms unit of some Pestilence and Scryer for whatever reason, that's neat. And some of them, like the Deepkin specific ones of like kill a monster with some sharks, the monster has to be from like full to dead. With this, complete this battle tactic, the unit is destroyed this turn by attacks made with missile weapons by friendly clan Scryer units. The thing can already be hurt. You could leave a Maw Crusher on 1 wound, and then, battle round 3, pick this, you've got your Rattling Gun, and just mow them down. This is great. These are really good. Again, the faction terrain pieces are great. You get 3 of these gnaw holes. They are like little tears in reality. They look like they've got like a mining scaffolding setup where they just give you all of these buffs. I couldn't even fit a picture of the gnaw hole on here. I'm going to have it on the cover of the video, the thumbnail. Where it's, again, the setup is a little restrictive. It is, you have to be 3 inches away from all objectives like normal. You have to be more than 18 inches from all the gnaw holes, which you want to do anyway. And you have to be wholly within 8 inches of the battlefield table edge. Alright? Now here's the thing. This terrain is impassable. if your opponent has a mechanic where they deep strike or teleport around table edges, they can't land on it. They have to walk around it to charge or do anything. So if you're setting up this thing smart, actually, 2 years ago at the Boys, this happened to me with my Living City army, where I had to come in on a table edge. So my opponent put two of the Nahals, one on each of the table edge in front of his army, so I couldn't pop out and then charge his army. Because I'd have to charge around it. That went from being a 9-inch charge to like a 13-inch charge, which is illegal in Age of Sigmar. It protected his whole army from my gimmick. I love Nahals. It's just so good. There's another spelling mistake. See if you can find it and say it in the chat below. Once per turn, from each Nahal, you can teleport a friendly Skaven unit at the end of the movement phase. That is so cool. Because, again, you can fake people out. Oh, am I setting up here with my thing? Oh, nope. Gotta throw in an artillery piece right in range of your dudes that you tried to screen me out of because I moved and then you redeployed. Play all the mind games with this. This gives you +1 to your chanting rolls, your casting, dispelling, and unbinding. This is great. Again, this is great. And now, an example list. So here we are, back again, with an example list. Now, I am not a Skaven player myself, so this is a grain of salt. I've played against Skaven. I've got friends that play Skaven. They love Skaven. They tell me about it. I'm scared of pushing around Horde armies, so I don't do it. But if I had to, and I wanted to play a list that was fun and will win me some games, this is what I'd do. I would start with No Place for the Weak is the grand strategy, which in this General's Handbook currently that we have here for this season, it's doable. It's on me to knock out my opponent's battle line units. That's doable. Indomitable is great for the army. And then my general is a Warlock Bombardier. We're going more Scryer themed and flavored here. So we get access to the Warp Stone Spark tokens to buff my units, my army, and I have the command trait Masterful Scavenger here to give me 2 more in case I flub the roll to get them, because they're just useful the whole time. The lore of... You notice that I have multiple spells. I took a Warlord Battalion to get access to more spells, because they're awesome. That's it. Beginning and end of statement. I mean, the Bombardier is 115 points, has a cool shooting attack that we could do up. It's a single cast wizard, but that's really all I need it to be. And the same thing with the Engineer. There's an argument to be had for the Arch Warlock, in that it is a 2-cast wizard normally. The Warp Lightning Shield is a good damage avoidance thing, because you got to do so much damage to it for it to pop. So your general is tankier. More warp power is just a fun spell. I have Thankful on Bone Ripper. Now this is where it gets a little controversial. When you buy your Thankful on Bone Ripper, this is, if you love the Felix and Gotrek books, this is the bad guy right here. You can very easily get some magnets, get like the little tiny silver magnets for models, and magnetize the arms to have whatever configuration of warp fire, braziers, and projectors you want. Warp fire projectors are great into hordes. They have an ability where, again, you roll as many dice are in the unit. You roll, I believe it's a 4-up to do mortal wounds. The braziers are great for beating the snot out of somebody. I like to have a couple warp fire projectors just to even unleash hell with on someone charging in on me if they charge in with a horde unit in a horde meta. But it's good shooting. It's short range at like 8 inches, but it's alright. We have Skitter Leap, which is not for Thankful. It's to actually move around the Bombardier or the Warlock Engineer, because Thankful's got 1 too many wounds. And Death Frenzy, again, to have a unit fight on death. Even if you're not teching for it, to be like, get all the extra attacks, get all the extra things. It's still really good. Yeah. And then we've got a little more redundancy with more warp power and chain lightning on the Warlock Engineer. And they come with a spell that's called more warp energy before you make a hit roll or an attack with your... Sorry. They come with warp lightning. I was thinking of an ability here where you can buff your own attacks at a chance of blowing yourself up with mortal wounds. Same thing with the Bombardier with its rocket attack. If you really need its shooting to go off in the right place at the right time, you're going to supercharge that rocket, possibly do, I think, D6 mortal wounds to yourself, but you can just rain absolute hellfire. So it is more Doom Rocket. Before you make a hit roll for an attack with a Doom Rocket, you can say that the engineer's overloaded its warhead. If you do so, at the end of that phase, the attack characteristic goes to D6 instead of D3. However, that was it. You get extra attacks at still 3 damage apiece. However, if you roll 1 to hit with any of the attacks, you take D3 mortal wounds. It's a give and take here. There's a theme. Battle line units. We've got 20 clan rats with rusty blades. 20 clan rats with rusty blades to be screens and objective holders. They are going to be with the Storm Vermin and an Expert Conquerors battalion, so they count as 3 bodies each. So all of a sudden, that is a lot of staying power on objectives. The Storm Vermin are really here because they act as a bodyguard for my heroes that I don't want to die. It's nice. It's nice. And the Storm Fiends are just an amazing hammer unit. They are your damage dealers. Those wind launchers are amazing. And I gave one of the Grinder Fists to the unit because if I don't go first, this unit is going to get targeted down and get blown up. Alright? But I can set up a play to teleport one of my heroes to where they're going to deep strike from, so all their shooting works out. And I have the control of that either through my gnaw holes or the skitter leap spell. I have multiple ways and redundancy to do that. And really, I want to start off with the wind launchers, which have a great profile for damage. And they're great in targeting larger units of like 10 or more models. You get +1 to wound with it. And they're good in combat. They are. And the Rattling Gun is nice too. But I really like the Grinder Fist for being able to deep strike the unit. Because I feel their survival is a little bit more important in this age of alpha strike shooting. If I go into like a Caradron Overlord player, they're gonna live if they take first turn. Lumineth Realm Lord archers won't be able to shoot them because they're not on the board. Cities of Sigmar shooting, the 30 Iron Drakes teleporting up, they're not gonna be there. I could just go on, but just by protecting them, and I'm gonna have the footprint in my deployment zone to plop them up if like someone comes at me and alpha strikes me, because I have the screen set up and how I'm going to deploy with those clan rats and the Storm Vermin to hold the line. And if they all die, sure, that's great. My hammer will pop up, and then I have a chance for a double turn to even the playing field and get in with combat. Next, I have a Doom Wheel, which again is amazing for its movement shenanigans, and I have a Rattling Gun. So the cool thing about there's Rattling Guns, there are where are you? So it's Rattling Guns. I have notes, I swear. Warp Fire Throwers, and then there's a Warp Grinder team. These are units that could be put in and hidden inside a Clan Rat unit or a Storm Vermin unit, and they pop out during your turn to shoot and rain Hellfire down on people as long as you didn't run with the unit. And it's something you pick before the game. You write it down which unit it's going to be in. And it makes your opponent have to have a guessing game of where you're going to show up. Some people like having multiple Rattling Guns or Warp Fire Throwers. The Warp Grinder lets you deep strike the unit it's in. Which, again, just another threat. Just something to think about when you're making a list. I like the Rattling Gun for just the amount of raw shots you can get when you... because each one of these things has like a limiter to like not kill itself. And you can say, flip the limiter! And like the Rattling Gun, it's more and more warp led. Before you determine the attack characteristics of a Rattling Gun, you can say that the crew are releasing the gimbal limiter. If you do so, the attack's characteristic for the attack is 4d6 plus 3 instead of the standard 2d6 plus 3. However, if you roll any doubles when you're doing this, the unit blows up after it finishes its attacks. So the profile is 4 is to hit, 4 is to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. With a Warpstone Spark, you can buff them, you can buff the Storm Fiends, and it's nice. Again, this is just nice. And you can plan around more Rattling Guns to buff them, the Storm Fiends to be buffed from the Sparks. I usually do like 1 or 2, but in this list again, I was just trying to fit extra stuff in. Like you could drop the Storm Vermin and get more Rattling Guns. That's completely viable. Because it's also really fun. And again, if we're doubling the movement on a Doom Wheel that's going like 4d6 and flying around the board shooting people and running them over and dropping mortal wounds, or we're moving the Warp Lightning Cannon that people deployed an inch outside of its effective range because they didn't think you were going to use it on that, and they thought you were going to use it on the Doom Wheel for the artifact of the Vial of the Fulminator up here. Your Warp Lightning Cannon will do more mortal wound shooting. So this is just, it's a lot of raining down hellfire on your opponent. Now, the Warp Lightning Cannon, probably, I would say, when I think of Skaven, I think of this gun. Here's its profile. Here's Warp Lightning Blast. Here's how this works. Okay. So it's got a range of 24 inches. Do not use the attack sequence for an attack made with a Warp Lightning Blast. Instead, roll a dice to choose its power level. Alright? Then roll 6 more dice. Out of the 6 you roll, if they are equal to or greater than the power level that you rolled, the target suffers a mortal wound. So let's say I rolled a 4 on my power level dice. 4s or higher are mortal wounds. Now you can spice this up though, if you're, buffing everything up here, and go more Warp Lightning. A Warlock Engineer can increase the power output of a Warp Lightning Cannon. That's why we have the 2 heroes. Before you roll the dice to determine the power of an attack with a Warp Lightning Blast with your friendly Warlock Engineer within 3 inches of the unit, you can roll 12 dice instead of 6 to try to shoot for 12 mortal wounds. Unfortunately, every time you roll a 1, when you roll those 12 dice, you do D3 mortal wounds to yourself. Realistically, you're blowing yourself up by round 2, but you're trying to shoot for the 12 mortal wounds. Because if you roll a 1, everything's a mortal wound. You just got to roll to check to see if you hurt yourself or not. Sometimes you're going to get lucky and get 2 good rounds of shooting out of this and do 24 mortal wounds. Other times you're going to blow yourself up on the first try. But that's Skaven. That's the whole risk-reward out of all this. And all the different buffs you can do that can hurt yourself. If you're throwing the Storm Fiends into combat with all of their hurt they do after they shoot, you're going to earn your points back. If you get to, with the Rattling Gun, mow down a unit of 10 dudes, it's 65 points. The Rattling Gun, you're going to earn your points back. A Doom Wheel sniping a hero because you ran over it and then you shot it. You had to do mortal wounds on the flyby there. You did it. You earned your points back. Warp Lightning Cannon's only 150 points. It is amazing. So, here's the thing. We're 10 drops. We're not choosing who goes first. That's why we have the Grinder Fist to protect our Storm Fiends. That's why we've got Skitter Leap, and if someone can zone out our gnaw holes. That's why we put the gnaw holes in a place where they're not near objectives, so that our opponents go towards the gnaw holes instead of covering the objectives with their bodies, and we run up to 20 clan rats that go a little bit farther thanks to the bell ringer. And it's like, cool, here's 60 bodies on an objective. Move me. They probably will, but that's going to be objective for a long time, and that's enough time it's buying for your shooting to win you the day. And then Thankful just goes and messes everything up with Bone Ripper. It's very fun. It is very fun to watch. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class today. I hope you found this video fun. Again, I love answering viewer questions. If you have questions, put them in the comments down below. We'll get to them as soon as I can because we got a lot of stuff to cover and a lot of things coming to the channel soon. So, as I like to say at the end of all our videos, class dismissed. Bye.